Hey everyone, welcome back to High Vibin' It. We're so happy to have you here. And today, as usual, we have a very special guest. His name is David Trotter, and he's a transformation coach. And today we're going to talk to him primarily about how we can start to embrace our uniqueness, uncover some more of our superpowers, and bring our inspiration to the world as unique individuals with unique gifts. So, David, thanks for being here.
Thank you. It is great to be with both of you.
Yeah. I don't know who all is listening that's a part of our Patreon right now, but you're going to laugh when you see what happened before this conversation
I
because
can't
David
even
was just
talk
like
about
making
it.
us giggle a bunch before we even started.
This is going to be a fun interview. David,
I'm
can you
excited.
start by telling us about your journey, how you kind of felt called to this work, and what you do to help people now?
Absolutely. In late 2018, I had just wrapped up my fourth feature film. I produced and directed three documentaries on social justice issues and one scripted feature film. And I told my wife that I was feeling like there was a kind of a shift in a different direction. I felt like I was being called in a little bit different direction, mainly because there were parts of the film work that I didn't enjoy. I didn't feel like I was using my best gifts, my best energy in the midst of that. And so I said, I'd really like to move in the direction of podcasting and coaching. I'd done a lot of coaching over the course of my 25-year career, but not necessarily in a formalized way. My career began 3 years in corporate. Then I was a pastor for over 10 years, starting churches, and did a lot of coaching, counseling, tons of speaking, obviously, on a weekly basis. And then the last 12 years, I've done a lot of marketing consulting work for both for-profit and nonprofit, and then, of course, the films. So over the course of those 25 years, a lot of coaching. But I said I'd like to do it more formally. So we started Inspiration Rising in January 2019 as both a podcast and coaching platform. And the podcast, I have always said it's dedicated to women and the men who support them to rise up in life, love, and leadership. And so I interview primarily female entrepreneurs and leaders who are doing great things in the world, and they share their wisdom with us. And we, of course, draw upon that. And then the reason why I focus the podcast and the coaching more so on women, parentheses, and the men who support them, is because I talked to my wife and said, okay, who's this for? Of course, you guys know, you gotta say, well, who is this for? If it's for everybody, it's for nobody. And we said, well, who are the people that have been most impacted by my work over the last 25 years? And we both agreed it was primarily women. And women kind of 30 to 50 years of age have always been drawn to what I do. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's the heart of the stuff that I'm focused on, but it felt a little odd in the beginning, of course, to go, and some people get it, some people don't, and that's okay. I feel like I'm at my highest self, my best self, when I'm working with women, either in support of women or coaching women or however that looks. And in a lot of my work in ministry, I hired female pastors, which is a bit unusual. In my marketing business, I've primarily worked with female clients. Even my work with films. One of my films is on sex trafficking in the United States. And we featured 6 female abolitionists who became aware of the issue of trafficking and then opened up an aftercare home to help with survivors. So for whatever reason, a lot of my work has been in support of females, and it just feels kind of natural to me. And so that's part of what I'm up to now.
It's very intriguing. I gotta say, when I was introduced to you, um, I was very intrigued. I didn't really know how to take it, and I think that's probably the reaction you get all the time, but in a good way. For me, it was like this, like really cool, exciting, like curiosity, like, oh, what? I wonder what draws him to the female journey, because you don't, if you identify as a man, you generally tend to identify with those who have the same struggles as you, the same choices, decisions to make on a day-to-day basis. Um, and I wasn't quite sure about you. I gotta say, I'm super inspired by you already, and it doesn't surprise me at all that the people that benefited from you the most were females, because you tend to, like, I feel from you that you are invested. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
not, there's nothing else. It's just, you just genuinely want to help, and I really like that about you. So I would say, like, would you say you've always kind of had this draw to the female journey and what kind of women go through?
You know, I probably wouldn't say that. I mean, I feel like that would be disingenuous for me to say that. In the beginning of my book, I do, in the introduction, I talk about how I look, because I've tried to examine it in my own life as well. You know, I mean, honestly, Lindsay, I went to my wife and I said, I don't know why all these women are attracted to things that I'm doing. I go, it's not because I'm hot and have all these abs. It's not. I go, maybe I'm gay. Maybe I'm gay. That's why all these women want to hang out with me.
Oh my
He's
gosh.
like, I don't think you're gay. I go, yeah, I don't either, because I don't enjoy that one part of being gay that I think is required.
The main part.
Yeah, the main part. It's like attracted to men. I go, that's not. It's not. I'm just okay. So anyway, but what I thought through was through the early years of all of our lives, women play a primary role. So in most people's lives, like my mom, I look back and I go, wow, she obviously she bore me, she birthed me, she brought me into this world, she cared for me, she nurtured me, she prepared me for school. I went to elementary school. Every one of my elementary school teachers were women. And most people would say that. Maybe there's one or two guys thrown in there, but most of them are women. And then around middle school or junior high, whatever you call it, it kind of starts to transition to guys. And that's not only true about education, but also sports teams, spiritual or faith leaders. The bosses that I had at part-time jobs all began to be men for some reason. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Why do we entrust these early years of kids' lives to women, but then all of a sudden the women start to transition out and it's more men? And I began to continue to look at my life and go, a lot of great men, including my dad. My dad's very present in my life, a huge investment. And, but yet, as I continue to look, I go, wow, this woman made a big impact in my life. This woman was my first boss in corporate. This woman I hired to be a pastor on my staff. This woman I worked with in terms of, different things. So I don't know why. Here's one thing that I would say. I was on a podcast the other day and I had a breakthrough actually in my thinking on this. It was crazy. I am a very type A driven, intense individual. And I can, in my, I hate to say worst moments, but in my most unhealthy moments, can be too direct, too intense, too perfectionistic. And that definitely is the case. I had a staff of 12 people when I was leading a church with 3 different locations. And it's tough for me to oversee that staff because of that degree of excellence that I have in my head. And that communication can come off challenging. Yet, for whatever reason, when I'm around women, I find that aspect of my personality comes out less. And I feel a more sense of a collaborative desire rising up within me. There's no sense of competition. I don't feel competitive with you at all. And it's not because I'm better than, it's just more of like, oh, who are you? I want to get to know you. Like, how can I help you? How could you, let's just like eat it with each other. So that sense of collaboration in me, I think comes out more. And I feel less,
Less
and
control freaky.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really like that. I feel better about myself then. I'm like, well, I want to feel that more, you know? So maybe
Yeah.
that's part of it too, that there's like this subconscious desire within me. But I also have in no way some desire to tell women what to do. Like in terms of the coaching process, it's very exploratory in terms of asking questions because I believe that those hopes, those dreams, those visions are already within. I'm more of a reminder of what people oftentimes know, but don't know how to embrace. And so like even the first part of the book is all about embracing your true identity. So many of us create an identity around a lot of other things. For a lot of women, that identity is around being a wife or being a mom. Those are 2 strong categories, around being a caregiver or a nurturer. And a lot of the women I work with have their children going off to middle school or college, and now their identity is transitioning because are they still a mom? Yeah. Are they needed differently? yeah, now I'm not needed as much. Well, who am I then if I'm not needed? Am I still a mom? Am I still, right? And so it's then processing and going, okay, well, maybe that idea of you being a mom is not your true identity. It's part of your identity, but your true identity is so much deeper, so much more rooted in your heart, and that's what I people try to embrace.
That is so cool. I love where you took this explanation in this conversation, because I know that in your when looking into you, I know you focus. I don't know if it's the majority of your work, but a lot of your work is around, empty nest and that those kind of lifestyle transitions, because it is very important. I'm a mom of 3 young kids. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily need to think about empty nest syndrome anytime soon, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But I definitely always, I think it's always on my mind. Who was I before I was a mom? Or even before that, who was I before society told me who I should be? And I
Yeah,
think that's a question a lot of women either don't ask or don't know that they should ask. Like, who did I want to be before I was told who to be? And don't get me wrong, I love who I am. I love being a mom, and as any mom does, I love being a mom and a wife,
of
and
course.
nurturing and caring for these little tiny humans in my household. But it does beg the question, what happens after that? And you can't be just one thing. And I think it's so important for you to tackle that and to really know that that is a struggle, because it really is.
Yeah, and even in the midst of right now this pandemic, so many of the things that people have built um, our identities around, when those things evaporate or go away, then we are left asking ourselves, well, who am I? Who am I really if I don't have that job, if I don't have that 401k, if I don't have those investments, if I had a relationship and now it's like somehow disintegrated because we spend every waking moment together and now we're actually filing for divorce. Who am I if I'm not a husband or a wife? Who am I if I don't have that job? Who am I if I don't have that car or that house? Because I was the person who had the 5-bedroom house, right? Like that's part of my identity. Where it was like, uh, well, those things are all, for me, all of those things are playful and fun. The size of the house, the car, the clothing, the cosmetic surgery, the color of your hair, the style of your hair, all of those, socioeconomic status, your education level, none of those things are your true identity. Those are all things that we use to prop ourselves up and make us feel better about ourselves and try to fill that hole of not enoughness from within. So for me, the way that I did that early on in life was through education. I figured out through college, man, if I could graduate with a BA and MA in 4 years and walk that line twice, wow, that would fill up that hole of not enoughness within me. My senior year of college, I was taking graduate level courses to finish my master's. I was working for Nabisco part-time, cooking cookies and crackers on the shelves to make money. I was a TA for a professor helping edit his book. I was the photo editor for our yearbook and newspaper, and I was married. I'd been married in between my junior and senior year of college. You guys, after that year, I'm totally burned out. Why? Because I was using all these things to try to fill that hole of not enoughness. Well, then I went on and went into full-time ministry, and I spent 10 years trying to build a bigger and better church in order to fill the hole of not enoughness. I ended up coming to a place 12 years ago where I would just had a total breakdown. I just lost it because I could not, it wasn't working anymore. And that's what I find. And it's less about the transition of kids leaving the nest and more about at any point in our lives when we lose something that we were building our identity on, then it causes us to question, who am I? So I either try to replace that, like get a bigger, better job or a bigger, better, husband or spouse or whatever, or get the implants or get the nicer car or, to make myself feel better. Or I do the deep work of saying, who am I really? Like without all this stuff, without any of it,
That's a
who would I
good
be?
question to ask. If anyone, wants to dive in, if everything that you cling to is gone tomorrow, would you be the same person? And
I think identity crises are so valuable, even though they're so horrible to go through as you go
Kelsey
through
loves
them.
a good identity crisis.
I mean, I've had many. Like the first one was when I was like training my whole life to be a professional ballerina. And then I had like a lot of injuries by the time I was like right at that pre-professional level, like getting serious.
Great example.
Yeah. So then when that identity was stripped of me and I was like, well, if I'm not going to be a ballerina, if I'm not a dancer, like I'm nothing. Like that's like literally what I believed. I was like, I'm nothing. Like that's all I am. That's all I do. I literally go to school, I eat, I sleep, and I dance. Like that's it. So without that, I was like, damn, like I really don't know what I am outside of that because I've never really thought about it or explored it. And that was honestly like the first initiation of like my spiritual awakening. And it sent me into like a huge like depression and all this like self-exploration. And it's just, yeah, like identity shifts are powerful. And then when you can come back to the true source of what and who you are, then it doesn't matter all the outside things. They're just fun, like how you said.
Yeah. And ultimately that is very tragic that you couldn't continue forward, but you had the wherewithal, or you were introduced to someone to shift that from being a experience of tragedy to being an experience of transformation. And some people never move beyond that sense of tragedy. They get stuck in there. And that's the person that, lines their entire house with all their ballerina pictures. Not because they're remembering these as positive moments, but because of like, it's somehow a reminder of this is when life was good, and now it's not. And keeping that identity. Remember who I was, right? That's hard. That's so hard. So how can you celebrate? It's like, wow, tell me more about that experience. That's so fun. And then be in that place of, it was hard, but it was a transformation. And that was a gift. That was a gift for you.
Yeah, you have to have that balance of like letting yourself feel like how painful it was and like mourning the loss of that like identity, and then also like celebrating what was good about it. And then like something that really helped me was, well, what were the things that I thought I could only be through dance? Like I felt like it made me really strong and really powerful and really graceful, and I was like really feminine, but also like really like radiant, and all of these qualities that I was using dance to express, like they didn't just go away because I'm not dancing. Like there's other ways to express them. So when I realized that, I was like, oh, okay, I don't have to be attached to my identity because that's actually like who I am.
Yep. Ah, it's so powerful. Yeah.
So is that kind of like, let's talk about in your work, what kinds of people come to you, like in what stage of their journey? Is it during one of these kind of identity crisis-y events?
Well, it's pain. Somebody is looking for help in the midst of pain, and that could be they're in some sort of pattern that they can't seem to break. It's either a pattern of depression or sadness or stress, feeling like they're stuck and they don't know how to get out. It's all those types of situations. I have found, though, with women, it's one of these experiences. It's a job that they don't enjoy. It's a health crisis, a child that now needs them less for whatever reason, or divorce or separation. So it's one of those things that is kind of generally bring it up. I mean, it's hard. I can't even think of somebody else who's, maybe if it's a loss of a loved one, but that's not usually the case. It's
I think we can all relate to the breakup one.
I mean, honestly, I feel like people don't put enough importance on how breakups affect us, because it's literally like that person is now dead to you. Like if you're never going to see them again, it's like somebody died.
And 2 days ago you were like together.
Yeah, it's a shock to your nervous system.
Oh yeah, it's just brutal. Yeah.
It's like the most brutal. I think breakups are like the most unnatural thing that any person could like ever go through. I think they're the worst, most horrible thing on the whole planet.
Yeah.
However, right, they are needed. Let's be clear.
Well, sometimes
breakups need to happen. Some breakups need to happen, but yeah, I totally. If I'm looking back in my life and feeling the feelings that are being described of like the identity crisis and the just deep, you like wake up and it's the first thing you think about. That's what I would think about. Yeah, definitely be during one of those, like, of course, high school breakups were the worst because you're
the first time.
so up here all the time anyway. So how do you help? Let's talk about this true identity. I think this is so important. It's something that I definitely, it's the basis, the root of everything that I do with my clients is if you really felt connected to who you truly are, would you be afraid of this? Would you, want to take this risk? Would you be okay? And the answer is always yes. So what questions do you ask to get people really identifying who their true identity is or what that is?
hmm Well, the first step is I help them identify what are the things that they've utilized in order to create an identity. Because most people, unless they've had a spiritual awakening, they're not thinking what you just said. They're thinking, well, who am I? Well, I'm a successful blank, right? I'm a successful mom. I'm somebody. I'm a student. I'm learning, right? Maybe that's a student, and that's their identity as a student. I'm a successful investment banker. I'm a successful entrepreneur. That's where we go, is usually what we do with our life. Or if you're a mom, it's about the relationships, or it could be about sports. It could be about a team, even early in life. And some people never move beyond that. There's an identity around a sports team or a musical group or something of that nature. And so I help them, first of all, identify that. And usually they're in a place in life where they're realizing that that's not working, and that they're using that in some way to fill up a void within themselves. So that's the first step.
Hey there, thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to watch the extended version where you get the full podcast episode in a video format, just go to patreon.com/highvibe. The link is in the description. That's where you can become a supporter of the show, listen to all the episodes via video format, and each week you get extended versions of the show, meaning you get to see the pregame behind the scenes, and also you get an extended interview with whoever we're guesting, or if it's me and Lindsay, we usually pull cards for you guys, fun stuff like that. So go check it out. There's lots of cool goodies, including a free copy of my book, a free audio hypnosis from Lindsay. She's a hypnotherapist. And yeah, we just want to give you all the goods, all the content. So head over to patreon.com/highvibe to become a Patreon.
Or if you'd rather listen to the rest of this episode, head over to highvibinit.com where you'll see all the links to everywhere that it's getting streamed. Click your favorite one and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.